All right, good people of the internet. So this is round 2 of my urban worm bag. Last year, or I think 2 years ago, I'm not sure. Kind of feels like a blur at this point, but I had attempted to do this previously with the worm bin to kind of start sourcing my own worm castings, and it kind of turned into a disaster. I thought that I could do it in my basement, and throwing a bunch of banana peels into a overly moistened kind of environment just bred flies or little tiny gnats and kind of other stuff. So I'm going to give this a go for a second time, and we're going to keep it in the garage. I guess kind of the simple way is I'm going to close off the bottom of the worm bin. This is not a how-to video. This is just kind of me kind of documenting what I'm doing this time. I have a grand plan in the future of kind of doing some more of this, but so I'm going to line the bottom of this with some newspaper to keep stuff from falling out. If anybody's done this and had success with it, I'd like to hear about it. I'm just using grocery store mailers that came. But closing off the bottom, take a look. Nothing fancy, just a way to keep the bedding material in place. And for bedding, I'm using shredded cardboard that it's been pre-moistened. It's just like wet paper basically, but this was inoculated with Recharge, which is just I guess microbes and kelp and stuff like that. Something to give it a little more life, a little biology. But I'm gonna put this in. I've got cocoa core, and then I'm gonna do some worm castings to help inoculate it. That way, kind of the worm bin comes to life. And then some eggshells and a little bit of the worm food, which came from Uncle Jim's, which I have 5,000 red wigglers that are gonna go in here. We'll start off with, get this bedding in here. Last time I had done this, one, I got it way too wet and I got it way too full. But the worms kind of decided to run away. So I had, it was in my basement, and not only did I quickly get a whole bunch of flies and bugs going on in the worm bin, but I had the worms going full on escape. And this cocoa, it was a small 2-gallon brick, and I rehydrated it. I think kind of the trick is that if you use warm water, it rehydrates a little better. But I just put a gallon of water in with it and squeezed it out. And the way the cocoa is now, like it's nice and moist. And if you squeeze it, it gives you a little bit of a drop, or a little bit of moisture will come out of it. But it's not soaking wet, and it sat in this fabric bag overnight just to kind of let any of the excess water kind of come out of it. But put that in for the wormies. And I'm just gonna mix a little bit of this top layer together. I'm not too concerned. I don't want to overdo it. because I think that's what I did last time. I think maybe I could put a little more bedding in here, but we'll start with this for now. Take one more look. It is kind of dark, but all right, and then I want to add, this is 2 cups of castings. These are Colorado Worm Company castings. This way to kind of inoculate the bin so the biology within these castings starts to help break down. I'm optimistic that between the recharge that I use to inoculate the cardboard, as well as these worm castings, will help to kind of bring this to life, to start breaking down stuff along with the worms. And then eggshells. I know ground up, the worms love these. I didn't stick them in the blender because it makes kind of a dust cloud. But we'll I don't want to go overboard. We'll mix those in. And at some point I'll do a separate video on kind of the eggshells and what I do with that, because we go through a lot of eggs and I use them in the garden. I accumulate them, put them in the oven, and then bag them up to break down. And a lot of times I just sprinkle them over the garden beds to get them in to start breaking down in the soil. All right, so there's that. I'm trying not to overcomplicate this in any way, but like I said, we got 5,000 red wigglers that are going in here. Ooh, yeah, beautiful. Let's see if I can get these up here. You can see them. Ready to get to work. So I'm going to put these guys in here. I'm probably going to add a little more bedding after this is done, but they're all out of the bag. Give one more peek at these. Again, I know this is pretty dark, but so cool. These on the floor. And I'll put a couple handfuls of the worm food that came from Uncle Jim's worm farm. I believe this is just kind of spent grains, or not spent grains, but like corn and sprinkle that around the top, give them something to go on. And then I've got some, what else did I have? I've got a little bit of strawberry, I believe just strawberries that I had, scraps from chopping up strawberries that are in the freezer. And I think that's one thing that I learned from last time, is that any of the scraps that I put in here need to either go in the freezer or go through the oven. Like the banana peels, I started putting through the oven and kind of getting more dry. But I'm gonna go grab those. All right, so this is not a lot. Last time I overfed the worm bin, and I don't want to do that again. So I've got, these are in the freezer, I've got an apple core, which I'll put in here. And then just these tops of the strawberries. And then from tomatoes, just the stem. But I don't want to overdo it. So we'll take one last look at this. You can see the grains that are down there. It looked like there were chunks of corn in that, so I'm assuming it's just like oatmeal and corn. But the worms are kind of running around a little bit. And I am going to lay some more newspaper on top of it. And then I've got these egg cartons that, like I said, we go through a lot of eggs. So I'm just going to lay these down on top to kind of make a barrier. And my thought on these is that these are dry, so any of the excess moisture can be absorbed by that. So that's the start of this worm bin, and we shall see where it goes. The expectation is that it's going to take 6 months before I harvest, 4 to 6 months, I guess, before I harvest anything out of it. But I'll keep an eye on it, and as the food starts to disappear, I'll add a little bit more bedding. And I'm probably just going to use the same thing, the cardboard. I discovered my shredder shreds up the cardboard pretty well. But to be determined. Let's take one more look. So yeah, so you can see I've got the paper down underneath here, and then just the egg cartons on top. So we shall see. Hope all's well. Peace.